good afternoon, and welcome to the session on diversity and disabilities. I'm Dr. Kathleen Wickham. I'm a professor of journalism here in the Meek School of Journalism, and I volunteered to be the moderator for this program because, among other things, I'm also the parent of a 35-year-old son with severe autism. So for issues of disability, I've been there. I understand it in a different way. I also did a little research and found out from the US Census that 19% of Americans have a recognized disability. That doesn't include what I would call temporary disabilities, like when you break a leg and you have to hobble around campus in a cast. And what that also really means is that with those types of numbers, we all know somebody with some type of disability, which makes the awareness issue even that much more important. So first, I want to ask the panelists to identify themselves using only your first name and any other personal information that you wish to share. So we're going to start with you first.
My name is Timber. I deal with bipolar disorder, and that's about it.
That's it, if you want to. And your major?
I'm an anthropology major with journalism minor.
Thank you. Next.
All right, well, I'm Trenton. I'm a journalism major, and I have Asperger's, which is, it's like on the autism spectrum for those of you who don't know.
All right, thank you.
My name's Adam. I have cerebral palsy, and I'm a sports editor for Hotty.com.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Martha Grace. My major is in anthropology with a minor in business administration and Southern studies, and I have ADD, ADHD combined type.
All right, thank you.
I'm Matt. I'm a journalism major. I have a very mild form of Asperger's and a not so mild form of ADHD.
Hi, my name is Yalda. I am a master's student in higher education and student personnel, 3 weeks from graduation.
Okay.
Just had to say that.
All right, thank you very much for giving us your time and being willing to share your thoughts and feelings to educate all of us on some of the challenges that people with disabilities deal with on a daily basis. My first question is, this campaign is about rejecting stereotypes. So I'd like to ask our panelists, how do you think people might have stereotyped you because of your disability, and how do you respond to that stereotype when confronted with it? Who would like to go first? Go ahead.
People think that bipolar disorder means crazy, and I respond, yes, I'm absolutely nuts. So I agree with you. So that's usually my response.
So you deal with it with a sense of humor?
Just because that's my personality, yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, I mean, now people don't really notice it, but growing up, I guess it was a little more with years of therapy. I've been a lot better. But when I have, been confronted with those stereotypes, the only way I know how to respond is by outperforming them and just being better than them at everything.
Okay, that's another positive response. Someone else? Go ahead.
During my time at the university, I haven't really encountered, I haven't really been boxed into these stereotypes yet. But I suppose, in my earlier school years, people typically correlate autistic with being inept at most things. I'm here, so.
So you're obviously not inept, right?
Yeah, so I've done well enough.
Okay.
For me, it was basically more of high school, junior high, where people always thought that since I had CP, I may not be able to drive or stuff like that, or be able to play sports. and I found I was able to, with the help of my family and friends, persevere to find a way to drive and do stuff that my friends do.
And so you do have a driver's license. How do you drive? We're using hand?
No, foot.
You can do foot
Yes, ma'am.
pedals. So you did not need a car that was modified?
No, ma'am.
All right.
I feel like the stereotypes usually that I deal with personally have to do with people who don't believe that ADD or ADHD is a disability. And so in dealing with that stereotype in particular, it's been tricky to navigate both the disbelief and the overbelief of either it's impacting me so much that I should be twitching every time or fidgeting or hearing everything versus it doesn't exist. So I think really in dealing with those, I've had to talk to a lot of different people about a great many different things.
Okay.
I also add that getting medication is just a pain in the butt. Like, you have to go to the doctor, request a prescription, and then wait 72 hours, get that prescription, go to the prescription place or the pharmacy, and then you have to get that filled, and then you get that $50 charge just so you can be sane for 12 hours a day.
Not to mention how many times you have to go to get the right prescription. That adds to it.
I'm going to also follow Adam. With a physical disability, people think that I cannot do certain things, such as driving. Yes, no, I've been driving since I was, I think, 18, 19. And other things like just the perception of I cannot just do things. Even in a completely unrelated area like a job, for example, I can sometimes see that, people are hesitant, just because I'm sitting in a wheelchair, which has nothing to do with my job performance. So I can see that. And also, this is a, safe group, so I'm just gonna, be really honest. And also sometimes I feel like people don't think that when someone has a physical disability, especially that their like personal life is over, like they're not supposed to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Not that they're not supposed to, but it's just, for some people, it's a surprise. It comes as a surprise, which I don't understand why, because, love is in the brain, So that I can sometimes see that when I tell someone that I have a boyfriend or something like that, I can see the shock on their faces. They don't know what to say, how to respond, which is, I don't know. I'm personally not bothered. How I respond to those, I just ignore. If I see an opportunity to tell someone, hey, maybe we can talk about this. What were you thinking? Maybe I can help you understand a different point of view. But most of the time, I'm not really bothered because it's on them. It has nothing to do with me. It doesn't affect me. So
I like that. It's on them. You don't give them the power to define who you are.
Exactly. Yes.
That's great inner position to take, as well as the sense of humor as a way of deflecting some of those issues. One of the issues we have in journalism is language. And I say it's an issue because over the years I've read many news stories dealing with issues of people with disabilities, and in a really bad story, it will define you by your wheelchair as opposed to define you by your intellectual abilities. And so really the question I wanted to ask has to do, how can journalists do a better job writing about people with disabilities? And to be more specific, I'm thinking of word choices and the use of words such as handicapped, cripple, suffering from, or autistic child compared to child with an autistic diagnosis. What's your perception from news stories that you've either heard or read or consumed online? And how would you like to be referred to?
I think a major issue, and I'm not sure if whether it's a journalism issue or just an issue with the DSM, isn't that what the...
DSM,
yeah, is that autism is, Asperger's syndrome is now just a part of autism, and the fact that it's such a wide spectrum where someone like me, where I have to tell you for you to actually realize that I am on the spectrum, to someone that can barely function and do types of things, we're under the same spectrum. So when people hear autism, and I'm clearly capable, and I mean, I'm getting a full scholarship to get my master's degree. I don't understand why anybody should have the perception that I'm not capable. I've done nothing but prove that I'm capable, but because the word autism is thrown around, all of a sudden people are thinking, oh my gosh, this guy, he might not be able to get out of bed. Well, I dress myself, and I look pretty darn good. I'm not gonna lie. I have friends. I'm not crazy. I'm not gonna be a guy like Adam Lanza who also has Asperger's and shoot up a school. It's just so broad that it's
So
very
you would like
hard.
to have more precision
Yes,
when this.
more precision, because I am a human. First of all, I'm a human being first, and anybody that knows me knows that, like anybody, I'm pretty screwed up in the head, but not because of autism, but because this world is a crazy place. So, yeah, I think more precision would be helpful so that people can understand that, hey, I'm capable.
Okay, language, go ahead.
You can also ask that person how they want to be identified if you're doing a biographical piece. Being a journalism myself, there's a journalism minor myself, we can't really, I wouldn't suggest the use of derogatory words or some words that were formerly used to refer to like the person, and to use more modern terms. Like to this day, I would never use the word retard. My sister, I never really knew her because I'm adopted, but my sister is MR, and MR is a nicer way of saying mentally retarded. I don't even feel comfortable using MR, especially when referring to somebody who's blood related to me. So, I mean, they're just like, ask that person how they feel about what you're saying about them, like how they want to be portrayed as. I mean, it also happens in BT communities.
Yes.
And just give that person the respect that you would give anybody else, basically.
A few years ago, a local newspaper ran a story about I think it was a woman who was in a coma, and the reporter quoted the family saying she was a vegetable. And I hit the roof. I said, she goes, but the family said that. I go, I don't care. I mean, that they can say whatever they want within their home, but not appropriate. That's not an appropriate word. Better to say an unconscious state. It's clarity of language.
Now, as a journalism major, most of the time you have to report exactly what they say.
It wasn't in a direct quote.
It wasn't, okay.
Yeah. So other reactions to phraseology and descriptions that the media should be more aware of?
Well, one problem that I've noticed is that in news stories sometimes our accomplishments are inexorably tied to our conditions, and depending on the situation and whether or not say being on the autism spectrum is relevant, should decide where it goes in the story. For example, there's an artist who is a savant who creates landscapes have cities. The important thing to take from that would be that he can make these landscapes from memory, and well, he may have autism, but that shouldn't be like directly associated with what he does.
His art should be judged on his art, not as an autistic artist.
On his creative ability.
On his creative ability.
Although a counterpoint to that is because of some of the weird, I'll admit, like some of the quirks, I guess you could say, that come with autism, the fact that if it's directly, like, he might have that memory directly because of that, but you have to make sure, like, you don't paint him as the autistic artist, but maybe he has that skill directly as a side effect to that.
Okay.
But then after that, you treat him like a human being. Maybe it needs to be like a side note, but not necessarily that, both. I don't know. It's definitely a case by case thing, especially with autism when it's such a wide spectrum.
Right.
Or if the person wants it to be relevant to the story, then it can be.
Oh yeah, definitely that too.
And that's an important thing. I think you mentioned it. Ask what they ask. That's all we do is ask, how would you like to be described? And you could ask in the interview what bearing it might have had, which leads me to my next question. How does having, and I put this in quotes here, a disability affect your career choices that you may or may not be making?
Well, as far as disability goes, there are certain challenges that come with it in attempting a career in journalism. See, well, one of the most well-known side effects of Asperger's is having trouble in social situations, reading cues and reacting properly. It is something that takes practice in order to be able to work well at interviews and having the and I guess having the I'm trying to think of a word opposite to having the executive function to be able to prepare beforehand for things like that.
Okay, practice it in advance.
Mm-hmm.
What about the rest of you?
I really don't think a disability has much bearing on my career choice.
And what is you're not you're a journalism minor, right?
I'm a journalism minor. I always like to write. I've never been very logical being bipolar, so that not a strength of mine. Math and science are a little bit hard for me. I can do them, but writing and social studies and history, that's my thing. That's why I chose anthropology. But my career choice is probably to be a writer, and Oxford I guess, is the place to do that,
yes,
based on its literary history. But yeah, cultural anthropology is my emphasis, and I plan on probably writing. I got a poem published in Populi magazine. That was the Honors College magazine. I'm not in Honors College.
Well, that's make it even a better coup.
Well, I mean, it was my first published piece, so I mean, yeah, I don't think it has much bearing on like ability or my ability or anything like that.
Let's work our way down. You're a sports writer.
Yes, ma'am. With my disability, I was never able to play sports after the age of 13. So finding an alternative outlet like being a writer and following my passion for sports has opened up that opportunity for me to keep up with the game and doing what I love. Even though sometimes I may have trouble getting to different places because of my physical disability and it not being 100% accessible, it can be difficult. But other than that, it's been very fulfilling so far.
So you chose sports despite your disability?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay, go ahead.
I feel like career-wise, my invisible disability doesn't limit what I'm able to pursue, but it does make me very conscious of the situations that I'm in. I mean, part of having ADD is being unable to tune things out. So I hear everything all of the time. And so being conscious of, if I'm going to have an office, is that office going to be located close to a hallway? Is that going to be close to the bathroom where people are going to be coming in and out? And so thinking about, it doesn't limit necessarily my career choice, but it definitely makes me more conscious of the situations that career would put me in.
Okay, so you need some accommodations, perhaps, to succeed in the workplace. Easy accommodations, I would think. Matt, or?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of crazy enough to try to be a Division I basketball coach. But honestly, one side effect, I guess, or quirk of Asperger's is a lot of times you get an obsession. You almost get into your element. And to be a Division I basketball coach, you've got to be willing to work long hours. And also because of the way things have been, you have to learn how to deal with all different types of players. And it's like social situations. It's like we have a manual transmission and everybody else has an automatic transmission. So I had to learn to drive stick, but except in social situations. And I can also turn it on and off. Like a lot of times you need to tell somebody that they're shooting like crap or they're taking crap shots or stop turning the ball over. And some people are wanting to save face, but you gotta tell them like it is. And in those situations, I can turn it off, and I can be the least empathetic son of a gun on the face of the earth when I have to be. But you have to learn to develop that empathy and show your players you care, and that you want to do these things. And so, if anything, because I've had to work so much harder to, become not a robot and a human being. I think it almost puts me at an advantage, but at the same time, the label of, that's why I don't talk about it that much, because I know that if someone, if they associate me first with that, there's not a lot of jobs out there in the field I'm trying to get into. It's not like I can just jump in there where you have to convince them, you have to work 10 years to get your foot in the door, and it's very hard to get your foot in the door if people are scared of you or think that, you're some, like the word before, vegetable, and it's just, no, I'm just a little more intense at times, and sometimes I can't read your facial expression, so just tell me something.
I've had Matt in class. He's very good at doing that.
For me, it also didn't have any effect on my career choice. This is actually my second career. I used to be a research scientist in a molecular biology lab, which some people thought that, that wasn't for me because, you have to do experiments all the time, and benches in the lab, they're normally designed higher so that people can stand up and do the experiments like that. And the chairs in the labs, they're always like bar stool chair kind of chairs. They're higher if they decide to sit down, using those high benches. I always found a way. I mean, it's just, for me, I use a wheelchair. For example, coming back to your previous question, about words that they use, I personally don't like the phrase that confined to a wheelchair. I'm not confined to a wheelchair. I just use a wheelchair, for example. So in the lab, I also looked at it that way. I'm just using a wheelchair, so I just need accommodation. So every lab that I worked in, they just lowered one of the benches for me, and then they empty out the bottom part of the bench so I can just roll in. So I'm not far from the bench. That was the only thing they did. And other than that, I did everything that everybody else in the lab was doing, and more sometimes. So for me, my career choices are defined by what I want to do. They're not defined by what I can do. Although it might have helped that I never wanted to be like a soccer player or something like that. So, it was never in me, so it helped.
You just needed a simple accommodation.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
As long as they're done, then I'm good to go, so I don't need anything.
But then we also need, from hearing some of the others, we also need some tolerance from the other side, which is one of the purposes of this program, is to make people aware. I think, isn't the theme, it's like pause and think before you act. What would you, for some of you may or may not want to answer this, but what I wrote down is, what would you like to tell people you meet in public who offer assistance or ask questions or appear uncomfortable with your presence? And Anne, has this ever happened to you, and how did you handle it?
Just on the way here, I had to park my car in front of the, what is that, the south, one of the residence halls, Lucky Day residence halls in that area. That's where I parked coming here. And then I was, going up that hill coming here. Someone saw me and then, hey, do you need help? Which is fine. I mean, I don't mind that question at all because it's a sincere, offer to help, which is fine. But I also don't want people to assume that I need help. If I need help, I would ask you for help, but don't assume that I need help. I had people actually, even not here, but before, just starting to push my chair. It's just, yes, that's the pace that I give them.
That would be scary. I could see you whoop.
Yes, I mean, all of a sudden, yes, you have a rhythm going on, and then someone just pushes you. And also, my wheelchair is an extension of my body. I feel that it's part of my body. So when someone touches my wheelchair and they bump it and they don't apologize, that makes me very upset because I feel like this is an extension of my body. So I consider it as, very rude, touching it and not apologizing. So, outside I can sometimes, I see people like that who are, they're nice, they're just trying to help, but sometimes, it just shows me the assumptions that they have about me, that I cannot do it. Or I'm getting in and out of my car, for example, which I do every single day, and I'm in the middle of actually transferring my wheelchair into my car. That it's obvious that I'm in the middle of it, I'm already doing it, and then they come and ask me if I need help. Again, very nice, so I never am rude to them because it's a kind offer, but at the same time, the assumption is that I need help. So that's something, that I see all the time, so I'm very used to it now.
Would you prefer if they said, instead of saying, need help, would you like help? Would that be more affirming?
If they want to talk to me, I think one of the reasons sometimes I feel that they just want to talk to me. If they want to talk to me, they can always come to me and introduce themselves and we start chatting. I don't mind that. I like meeting people. I like talking. Obviously, I keep talking. I'm sorry, guys. But, they don't need to start with that, because obviously I don't need help. It's, it's the assumption that they have in their minds. So it's a kind thing to do, but at the same time, I don't need it, I don't want them to think that I need it. But if they want to talk, come over and, start talking, so.
Okay, others?
Don't be afraid if I'm ever over-communicating or saying something, just don't be afraid to tell me to shut up. because there's been so many times where I've lost friendships, I've lost other things where it just, I'm intense sometimes, and a lot of times I can't control that. It's just the way I am. I'm passionate about life. But instead of, just telling me that either I didn't get a job or this, they just ghost you, or they just don't tell you what's up. And that hurts a lot more because that just takes away your dignity as a human being. Being afraid to let someone know that, they're doing something wrong or that they're just talking way too much. And once again, if I'm talking way too much, please tell me to shut up. And it's just something that you just feel like, man, I wasn't even worth it to them for them to tell me that I can't go here, or, or I don't want to be your friend anymore, or I'm leaving you, that kind of thing. And that, it just hurts. And I get that, sometimes people like me can be a little intense, but there's a certain dignity, and it's not even just about people with disabilities, just the way you treat human beings. There's a certain dignity in being honest with people.
Anyone else?
I know off my medicine, I come across, sometimes I'm just off the wall. I will talk to you about anything. Off my medicine, I am just not an okay person. Don't cross me if I'm off my medicine. But on medicine, I'm just as cool as I'll get out. I'm a really nice person. I'm very loyal, so it doesn't really, I guess a lot of people would feel comfortable around me on my medicine, and I have a lot of friends, but I lost a lot of friends because the medicine that I take didn't come out to 2013. I was supposed to graduate from this college in 2012, and I actually already came here with my associate's degree, which, and I've been here that long. I've been trying to get out of here since 2010. But it's been like a lot of people would just find me threatening, and I physically, I might go off at the mouth at you, but I would never physically harm anybody. That's never been me, even though they have like cases, and it's well known that bipolars and schizophrenics or people with bipolar or schizophrenia would hurt you, and that's like a misconception. A lot of the time, we're scared of you. Like, you can scare us, because that's just, I don't like it. I would feel, I guess in a paranoid state, I'd be afraid that people were after me or something, and that would scare me. And like, I didn't want people coming up to me saying anything because I'm scared. And if I felt threatened, then yes, I would probably protect myself, but I would never intentionally hurt anybody. So that's like a misconception, because I just, we're people, and I just, like I said, on my medicine, I'm absolutely a cool person to be around, but off my medicine, then yes, you probably would think
Be a
that-
little difficult.
more than a little difficult. But yeah.
Okay, my three people in the middle, you wish to
Oh.
fit on that?
You
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go
All
ahead.
right. I guess one thing I can say is that my mannerisms may seem strange to other people. I don't tend to be the best at changing octaves in my voice, and my body language can come off as finicky and robotic, like a very large goose more than a person. But that's. But you know, I'm a bit more well behaved than that. Yeah, I'm just a fairly okay guy who doesn't know how to do body language correctly.
Okay.
For me, I had this happen just Saturday morning, actually. I have people that will come up to me as well and will ask me if I need help. But the coolest part about it to me is that kids will come up to me and be like, "Why do you have to use this? What makes you have to use this?" And you get to tell them and explain to them. And then as you talk to them, their parents will actually talk to you and actually will sometimes listen and ask advice. So that's been very beneficial.
That's good.
I feel when I'm interacting with other people and they know that I have a disability, a lot of times it's almost over-accommodating, like their conversation or when they're talking to me, they're talking to my disability and not to me. And that is something that I fight against a lot. So I think in conversations with other people, I try to make sure that my disability is the last thing that people think about. And I think a lot of people with disabilities experience people talking to their disability and not to them as the person. And really that just goes back to just asking. Asking the person what they are comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with. And not necessarily in a public setting either, because I've had that happen where someone has found out and then in a public setting they've gone, "So, let's talk about this." And I'm like, this is really awkward. Can we not do this right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think talking to the person is the most important thing, rather than to the person's disability.
And if I can add on to that,
Yes.
people sometimes just lower their expectations of you just because you might have something. Don't lower your expectations. I'm more than capable, and quite frankly, I know, I feel like if I put my mind, if I can't necessarily do things with my body that other players in the athletics world can, I'm terrible at sports, and I'm trying to get a job in sports. So yeah, there goes my life decisions there. But at the same time, anytime I've used my brain, I've been able to accomplish everything I've wanted to accomplish. And I know for a fact that if I use my brain, I'm going to be the best in the world at what I do. And so don't you ever set any expectations lower than be the best in the world or be the best that that person can be, because everybody's best is a little bit different. I sound really cocky right now, but it's also just the way I am. Sorry about that. You know, you've got to get the most out of somebody. And if you, I want to set, like, people want to reach for the clouds. I want to reach for the nebulas. That way, if I don't reach the nebulas, I might drop to a star. And if you only have them reach for the sky, well, if they're falling down towards that ground pretty darn quick. So don't lower expectations of people just because they might have a label of a disability. Get to know them as a human being. I mean, and once again, not everybody might have the same expectations eventually. It's just we're all different. We're all good at different things. But just a label shouldn't define expectations. It's how you are as a human being, how you treat people. And I try to treat people with love, respect, and with the utmost, I give everybody a chance. And that's the thing. You got to give everybody a chance as a human being, not as a label.
Okay, good. Excellent comments. What I'm hearing here is treat us with dignity, treat us as human beings first, and don't define us by the challenges that we face being slightly atypical from the rest of the world. I've got it pretty much. I have a few more questions. What do you wish faculty would do in class to accommodate your disability, to minimize your differences, and/or to assist you in feeling more included?
I have had the absolute best experience with faculty. My archaeology teacher is the sweetest man on the face of the planet. Mr. Murray, he is absolutely wonderful. And my journalism, the dean of journalism, he's in the back. Mr. Mitchell, I swear, if
Where
I
is
just...
There he is. Okay.
If I had my ideal dad, because I grew up with basically without one, if I had my ideal dad, it would be Mr. Mitchell. He is, don't cry. He is so sweet. I've had like the best experience with teachers here. I've never really had a problem with a teacher. It's just been a good, I can't say that. It's just been a good experience with faculty, so I've never really had a problem.
Okay, go next.
All right. I guess I'd want teachers to slow down with their train of thought. I mean, I know the semester's a lot quicker, but I cannot write any faster. I mean, I can do what's asked of me, but not if you skip right over it so quickly that I can't even write down the first sentence.
Well, I put my lectures online before class, so you'd be covered in my class.
Well, my time here was wonderful. I had all my professors were very accommodating and very just down to earth and were able to help you when you need help. So it was a wonderful experience while I was there.
Okay.
I've probably had a different experience than most people. I've had classes where everything was wonderful, the professors were so helpful, and I've had other classes where that was not the case, where tests weren't accommodated the way they were supposed to be. I've had a wide variety of experiences, but I think that I do agree with slowing down, definitely, because especially having an invisible disability, when I'm hearing everything around me and hearing the professor, and professors particularly that talk faster, I'm processing it by the time they've made it to the next sentence. So when I'm sitting there trying to write down, the next sentence starts. And so it's interesting to see what other people, particularly the faculty, bring when I tell them that I have a disability or I bring them my paperwork, and their reactions on whether and how much they know about disabilities as well, because I can tell a lot of times when I bring a professor the documentation that says I need accommodations, that they come with their own things. And in that conversation, they not necessarily always make their own assumptions, but they don't necessarily always ask a lot of the questions that I don't necessarily know would be relevant. So I think on some cases there are professors who are wonderful, who are almost overly helpful. And then in other cases, I have had other experiences that haven't been as wonderful.
Matt?
Bribe me with cookies. That's pretty much, but no, in seriousness, just, I guess with the accommodations part, I also have really, really bad handwriting, so it's so bad that I was sent to a school for like 2 years to get it fixed, and they couldn't even fix me. So please let me type my notes. I just want to be able to read them so I can study better and actually learn things. And also, consider the cookie idea.
I was about to say I agree with the cookies.
You like cookies too? If you're in my class, you usually get cookies.
What
Yeah,
class do you teach?
My experience with faculty has been amazing. I mean, no problems.
No problems.
Here, several years ago, when I was an undergrad in my home country, I had one professor who asked me what are you doing in this program? It was the molecular biology department. And I'm a student here, and of course that wasn't the answer she was expecting. So she didn't push it further, but she was shocked that I was in a wheelchair and I was working in a lab, or at least planning to work in a lab. So she just openly asked me that. So, but only one person. Yeah, others have been great. Yeah.
That's not bad. Everything is considered.
Different, yes.
Yeah. I think I have one last question before I'm going to turn it open to the audience. And this is one that really goes to the heart of the theme for Diversity Week. Have you ever been bullied, harassed, or treated poorly because of disability? If you're willing to share what happened, how did you respond? And conversely, what should someone do if they witness bullying or mocking of a person with a disability? So you can answer both or either one or not at all.
I think in high school, it wasn't as apparent as it was in college, so I probably got called weird by a couple people, but I was very insecure, but I never really heard it. Nobody would say it to my face, but I mean, I don't think I've ever been. I usually, growing up, I got bullied for my race, and that was probably about it, for being half white, being light skinned, and that always kind of did something that influenced bipolar disorder a little bit more, because when you have stress, it just especially as a kid, you don't know who you are as a kid anyway. So so that kind of, alongside with identity issues, that played into bipolar, but I don't think I've ever been necessarily bullied for bipolar disorder in itself. I don't think.
Okay. And you don't have to, you can say pass or not volunteer. Anyone want to share or not?
I've had dog crap smeared on me. I've been beaten with sticks. Let's see. Oh, I've had people pretend to be my friend, and that was just a joke. Okay, that's great. But most of that was just in grade school, middle school, because middle schoolers are kind of terrible people anyway. But it definitely, I sometimes have trust issues even. I've gotten better about it, and I've gotten better about knowing the kinds of people I can trust, but it's definitely, you have to earn my trust a little bit, because a lot of times I'm someone that, if I trust you, you got my 100% trust. And then that leaves you open to get hurt. And when you get unguarded and hurt, you have a lot of self-thinking to do and thinking of, why am I even here? When I was 16, I almost committed suicide. Good thing, I really thank God every day that I'm very, very bad at tying knots, because I did not know how to tie that knot right, and thank goodness my parents found me. But it's just one of those things where if you see bullying, just don't be a bystander, because people are out there, they're just, especially when you have kids, if anybody, I mean, we're all college age people here, and it's a little better now, but if you have kids someday and you see that, you got to know, even if they tell you that, oh, everything's fine, don't be afraid to be nosy, because you could see your kid hanging someday.
I know as a parent with a severely autistic child, the laughter that I would hear after we walked past would just tear me up, because he makes unusual noises and has unusual hand gestures. And that's probably the worst. Well, no, it's not, but that's the only one I'm going to tell you about, because it's not about me, it's about you today. Does anyone want to add anything else? Have an anecdote, a story, a request to make from our audience before I turn it over to the audience to ask questions?
Well, I'd just like to say, wow, I got off lucky as opposed to you. I was just shunned by the general populace at my school.
Oh, that was well, no, I would say that I was America's, how some people are third wheeling? Well, I was America's spare tire, where people would hang out with me if their friends, their backup friends, and then, okay, we might call it Barnhouse. But I was pretty cool with everybody. It's just, it was mostly the elementary school and middle school, I would say.
I want to say, if you have a friend with a mental disability, or whatever you want to call it, if that person may be a little bit more prone to suicidal attempts. So, shun that person because that might be like their last straw. So, I mean, a lot of different people are, have problems and stuff, but dealing with a mental illness is a little bit different than your average. Oh, I flunked a test or I mean, it's influenced everything from suicide attempts to being homeless, sleeping on the square with me. So, I mean, like, there are just some people, like, be cautious. If they're your friend, even if they're not, like, go up, ask that person how they're doing. Just be mindful of how that person feels, I guess. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Mindfulness, yes.
Yeah,
Be
okay.
aware.
I think a lot of times telling people that I have a disability, they don't know what to say. And it's really okay if you don't know what to say or you don't know anything about the disability at all.
It is.
That's fine. But that still, I think, goes back to the just ask. And I think that a lot of times people feel bad when they're talking to people with disabilities and they don't know what to say or they don't know anything about the disability. And so that's what ends up people losing friends or cutting people off because they don't know how to deal with the fact that their friend might have a disability. And so asking and communication are really going to solve up a lot of those problems. And Google. We live in a wonderful age. There's Google. So ask.
Ask. That's a good question. That's a good transition. I'm going to have them ask. All right? It's your turn to ask questions. You're journalism majors. You have to have questions. Come on. Where's the first one? Go ahead, Anna. You got to speak really loud so I can't get it off, so speak loud.
So my question is for you and the gang.
Yep.
As far as the ADD and ADHD goes, have you ever felt the need to, I guess, hide it from others?
I think primarily, mostly just self-defense. If you have an invisible disability, chances are everybody knows somebody who has an invisible disability. You just do not know it. I think that it's easier to hide the fact that I have a disability than it might be for people who have physical disabilities. That's just the way it is. But I think also that the fact that I don't tell people still goes back to the expectation walking in of having somebody look at me and go, either lower their expectations or try to compensate in different ways. And so I think that's why I tell really close friends after I've known them for a while, but in general, I think I don't, especially with the connotations of ADD and ADHD that we have in our society, I think that that's really what ends up inhibiting me sharing it openly.
Okay. Another question. Come on. Maybe there'll be 3 more questions. Come on. No more questions? Go ahead, in the pink.
How would you respond to someone maybe, I know I've seen this a lot, come up to you and say, oh, I understand what it's like. I guess it's small people. I understand what it's like. My cousin has such a, or,
Oh my God.
one time I broke my leg.
Yeah.
For 3 months. I totally understand what you're going through. Or things like where I'm sure that who knows what their, probably positive intentions. But
My
is that
favorite.
frustrating? I mean, I could.
Yeah, my favorite is I feel a little ADD today, which I think is something that we've all heard. And that's great. I'm glad you're feeling a little distracted today. But then the question is, do you feel it all the time? Do you feel it 24/7? And so I think for me, those kinds of casual cultural nuances that people try to use to go, I understand your situation. When it comes down to it, you might not. And I'd rather have you ask me what my experience was before you said you identified with it. I don't know. What did y'all's experience?
When people tell me that they understand, they know my situation, they normally think they normally assume something a lot worse than what I'm experiencing. So they think like, oh, she cannot walk, oh my goodness, it's just, it's over in a way. I mean, they assume really, really, really bad things. No, that is not true. I mean, I live my life, I'm happy, I have friends, I love my life. So that's one thing. But there's one person that I remember many, many years ago. She hurt her knee when she was playing tennis, and then she came to me out of all the other people that she could have gone to, and then she just pretty much like tried to cry on my shoulders that how she couldn't play tennis for another 6 months because of the injury. And she thought I could relate. I'm like, sure, yes. And that must be awful for you. Oh my goodness. What can you say in that moment? I mean, I can't just, like she was sad, so I allowed her to vent a little bit. But then I was just shocked that she thought I could be the person to relate to that. I mean, so anyway, that's funny. People do that sometimes.
Also, like if you're a doctor and if you're diagnosing people with mental illness, please don't think you know what it feels like to have a mental illness. If you don't have a mental illness, but you know somebody, but you've seen cases, you have no idea what it feels like to have a mental illness, because you don't know how it feels to go from 0 to 2,000 in 1 second. You don't know that. So that's my thing. Don't think that you do. Like, everybody has their problems. Everybody has their bipolar days. But if you aren't it, then you probably don't know.
First off, I don't even understand what's going on with me about 80% of the time. So if you think you understand, then my gosh, someone call you Einstein, because you obviously know something I don't.
Yeah, I remember being asked if my child was gifted in math or music. And I said, we were hoping for that math because we're journalists in this family and we don't do math.
Math is the devil's algorithms, and I will stand by that.
No one else? No? Kevin, was that you who had a question?
I was going to say, the term coming out is used a lot when talking about LGBTQ people, but some of you have used it today and other people have. So could you talk about some of your experiences or kind of what it's like to enter a new environment and kind of have to come out as someone that is differently able?
Oh, baby, if I'm off my medicine, you gonna know something is wrong. That's about it. On my medicine, I would probably have to tell you that something is wrong. But off my medicine, I'm just a little bit. So,
I suppose I came out to Miss Street because I wasn't even supposed to be on this panel, but I found out the panel was at 2:30 p.m. I was like, hey, Miss Street, I think this is actually kind of up my alley. And she was like, okay, well, I didn't know. So,
Yeah,
we have a
this
good
is
relationship. So.
But yeah, this is about as public as I've gone with my disability. It doesn't usually come up in conversation, so I don't really talk about it.
Okay.
May I add something to that
Yes.
question? The only time for me to come out is actually when I apply for jobs and I'm invited for an in-person interview. Otherwise, it's here. I mean, you see it when you see it. So there's nothing, not obvious. So in that case, though, I just tell them because they need to make hotel accommodations for me and they need to buy a plane ticket. So I tell them I will need, I need them to let the airline company, know that I need an aisle chair and everything to get on the plane, and the hotel room, needs to be accessible. So I tell them, and this is one of the things that I love about this country, that they are not allowed to discriminate you because of your disability. So every time that happened, they just took note and then they did it. They never asked any questions. They, because they're not allowed to. They cannot. So that was very nice, actually. That's the only time, and every experience I've had so far was perfect. So
I think the most awkward for me has probably been because I take my tests in a different environment than the average student. And so, you always have your one friend in the class who will take notes if you're not there that day, or you get to study with later. Well, the day of the exam comes around and you're not sitting there, and you hit out of your test and you get like 17 messages. Where are you? Are you okay? Have you died? Are you there? And so that sort of coming out is very, it's going to happen. And there's not really any way to, I guess, prepare for that or to just let them know. But that's, for me, I think the biggest way that my disability ends up coming out on its own is somebody will go, where are you? Oh my gosh, there was an exam today. And so I think that for me has been the coming out mainly to people of the fact that I have a disability.
Okay. Other questions, finally, in the back? No, they were just stretching? Well,
I don't bite.
I think the bottom line here is to treat, go ahead.
I would say, what age did you guys really like come to terms with like who you are and really say like, my disability doesn't define me, but like this is who I am as a person? When did you really become like comfortable with who you are?
I don't think my personality would be like it was if I wasn't bipolar. I'd probably be like really boring. But I think it just kind of, I dress different, I act different, I am different. So it's never been like, I just hate being bipolar. It sucks, it really does, but I love my personality, just, so it's never really affected that.
Funny enough, I was actually misdiagnosed with bipolar when I was growing up. So when I found out it was Asperger's, the only kid I knew with Asperger's was probably someone who was pretty far severe down that chain. And so it was like, wait, what? I'm like, no way, no. I mean, no offense to him, he's a good kid. It's just one of those things where you think you're some way, but you're not. But once it was nice because once I got my medications figured out, I was like, hey, I don't have to switch medications every 3 weeks and then have a bunch of new side effects. That was great. And it also started the actual process of learning, how to deal with people and how to deal with the way that I might have shortcomings. And because of that, I've had to work with it, and I have strengths. And quite frankly, at times, I have better social skills than any of you guys with your faces and your phones and stuff. It's just, it's one of those things where it's just, you have to work so much harder than everybody else at some of these things. But if you're willing to do it, you can lead a horse to water, but you have to be willing to drink it too. So some of it's on us. We've got to be willing to improve ourselves to make sure that we can, assimilate in society. I'm not going to say, oh, everybody should be on their hands and knees to try to adapt to me. I'm going to try my hardest to adapt to you if you try your hardest to adapt to me. And that's what we call the human race. And that is what we call building meaningful relationships. And it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. You gotta give and take. You get what you give. I believe that was like a late 90s song, and it's actually very good. Go look it up. But basically, it's give and take. It's not, don't feel sorry for me. Just know that you have to tell me to shut up sometimes. And
I think that's a perfect ending. He did a wonderful summary. Can we give some applause for our panelists for sharing?